right? So that is where, in Kautalya's understanding, on the one hand, the king has to be strong, but on the other hand, king is always supposed to take care of the welfare of his subjects. So that is where, if you recall, I just mentioned that Kautalya possibly draws the blueprint of a welfare state. So wherein it becomes the responsibility of the king to take care of the weak, the destitute, and the weaker sections of the society. So children, for instance, the old age people, for instance, right, the widow, for instance, right, those people who do not have any means of subsistence, right. So they should be supported by the king, they should be taken care of by the king. Now, this is also required for the king to understand that in the happiness of his subjects lies his happiness. In the welfare of the subjects lies his welfare. Those things that would please the king should not be considered good by the king, according to Kautalya. Rather than the things which would please the subjects should be considered as good by the king. Meaning that, please try to understand the point I made earlier, right? A strong king is required primarily because he can ensure security, right? He can ensure a condition wherein people can enjoy the fruits of their industry. So what Kautilya calls in a Sanskrit, that is Vyayama, right? Vyayama, industry, right? And that is what would be considered to be peace in Kautilya's understanding. So what is a peaceful condition in the state? Peaceful condition in a state, according to Kautilya, is a condition wherein people are in a position to enjoy the fruits of their industry, right? What they work, they should be in a position to enjoy the outcomes of their hard labor. That's what would be considered to be a peaceful condition. And the king is supposed to ensure that. So that is where it would mean that security is ensured to the people in the kingdom, to the people in the state, right? Now, Kautilya would also emphasize upon that as far as the king is concerned, king should also take care of the welfare of his subjects, primarily because if the subjects are impoverished, meaning if they are poor, right, if they do not have sufficient means to subsistence, then they are likely to become greedy. So impoverishment would lead to greed, and once people would become greedy, then they would become disaffectionate with the kingdom and with the king. Right? So that is where, in Kautilya's understanding, once the people, they would lose affection with the king or with the state, then under that condition it is likely that they may side with the enemies. So that would not be a good, or that would not be a favorable condition for Kautilya, right? So for one, as far as Kautilya is concerned, taking care of the welfare of the subject is also a prudent act on the part of the king, right? Would also be a wise act on the part of the king. So a wise king or an intelligent king would always ensure that people in his kingdom are not impoverished, because it would eventually lead to disaffection in the society among the people, and this may create a condition of discontentment among the people, which is likely to create a condition in which enemy states would be tempted to take advantage of this condition. All right. So that is where, to ensure security, to ensure peace, it is but required that the king would take care of his subjects. Now, as far as Kautilya is concerned, Kautilya would suggest that, along with taking care of the subjects, the king would also ensure that the righteous people in his kingdom, they are protected, and the people who are not righteous, unrighteousness is punished. This is again a kind of requirement which Kautilya understands would be the responsibility of the king to ensure security and to make the state strong. This has to do with the larger tradition which Kautalya follows, right? The point I'm trying to highlight here is that as far as Kautalya is concerned, we understand that Kautalya followed the Arthashastra tradition, right? And when I say Kautalya followed the Arthashastra tradition, I meant that his emphasis was to look at the aspects of politics and give preference and priority to the issues linked to politics rather than to the issues or to the factors which would be governed solely by considerations of dharma, right? But this does not mean that righteousness or dharma would be ignored in Kautilya's scheme of things. This would not be ignored, but the only difference that would happen, right, wherein Kautilya would give priority to or would give preference to the issues linked to politics, and wherever the requirement of politics demands that other considerations, including considerations of dharma, should be made subordinate to the requirements of politics, then it would be prudent on the part of the king to take steps in that direction. So that's what I mean when I say Kautalya, Kautalya belonged to the Arthashastra tradition, right? So he would not ignore dharma because according to Kautilya, as far as king is concerned, king is supposed to ensure that people follow their duties as per their station in the society. So Kautilya would suggest that the four Varna system as well as the four Vyavastha system, right? So Varna system wherein the society was divided into four different Varnas, that is Brahmans, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudras, and the four vyavastha in a sense that the stages, rather, right, the stages. So the stages of brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa, right? So a good king would always ensure that these things are followed in his state, right? And everyone does his duty given his station in the society, meaning that given his position in the society, one is expected to have certain duties, and these duties must be performed according to Kautilya by the concerned individual.